Vikings. The word itself incites to deeds of violence. Vikings have inspired countless authors, creating countless worlds and characters. At this point, a Norse character being a violent man with a severe drinking problem is utterly cliché. In this video, we'll discuss how to make your Viking characters stand out so that you have a leg up on the competition. I'll provide 4 writing tips to help your fiction shine. Before we go any further, let's determine what Norse is and what Viking is. Norse is the culture of Northern Europe around the time of the Viking expeditions, with their own gods and language. Vikings, however, are Norse who go on expeditions to plunder overseas, meaning Norsemen who plunder England are Vikings. Here, we'll use the terms interchangeably. First tip: use different values to create conflict. The Norse immensely valued honesty. Living in a world where conflict was all-pervasive, men who honored their oaths were considered good men, worth putting their trust and friendship in. Moreover, making an oath was thought of as an unbreakable promise. That meant that a Norseman had to complete what he said, or bring dishonor and the wrath of the gods down upon himself. An excellent example of this is from the Norse settlements on Iceland. Here, a famous horse breeder vowed to kill anyone who dared to ride his precious horse. A farm boy rode that exact horse, and the horse breeder killed the boy. Of course, this brought the horse breeder into conflict with the farm boy's family, and the families ended up in an unnecessary blood feud. Here's how to use conflicting values in your characterization. Make your character have values in opposition to the rest of society. What if your character values lies over honesty? Use the fact that Norsemen were expected to have a god they were especially loyal to and have a character worship a god or giant out of the ordinary. This would make sense if you had him worship a particular giant, like Loki. He was the trickster in Norse mythology, but there's no proof of him actually being worshipped in Scandinavia. Rather, he seems to be hated and feared. In fiction, however, you don't have to limit yourself to what is strictly historical. Thus, by valuing lies, this character will end up in constant conflict with society at large due to his oath-breaking, but also with the divine elements of the world, as he's worshipping an enemy of the gods, the trickster Loki. Second writing tip: use abnormal appearance. Norsemen were known for taking great care of their hair and beards. Compared to the Anglo-Saxons, Norsemen frequently bathe, even washing their face every morning. There's a reason why we always find combs in the graves of Norsemen, precisely because they took great care of their hygiene. We know from sources that Vikings were thought of as highly luscious and attractive by Anglo-Saxon women. This is because of their long hair and groomed beards. Here are 3 ways you can use abnormal appearance for characterization. To create a character that stands out, consider rapidly changing up the norm. What if your character struggles with growing a beard? They would then be mocked. And what if they were bald from the time they were a child? That would put them at odds with the Norse beauty ideal, leading to bullying and conflict. In warrior cultures, having long hair is often a sign of being a mighty warrior. To humiliate enemies, defeated warriors would have their hair cut off. At the start of your story, why not have your Viking character experience his enemy cutting off all his hair? That would be your character's lowest point in life, and allow him a clear goal of taking revenge. The third tip for making your Viking character stand out: give them a colorful childhood. The Norse had no schools. Nobody taught you how to read and write, the skills needed to survive. You learned on the farm where you grew up. Every Viking was also a farmer, lumberjack, craftsman, or fisher. From the early age of 5 or 6, young girls would help out with milking and tending to the animals. And boys of the same age would often be shepherds, sent away during the summer to take care of sheep, goats, and cows on the distant moors and meadows. Being a shepherd puts them closely in contact with nature. Wolves, bears, and lynx existed in far larger numbers than they do today, and these hunted the flocks young boys were sent to take care of. What did the first experience with predators do to your character? Did the young farm boy become fascinated with bears after he saw one devour sheep? Did he then decide to become a berserker, one who seeks to live like a bear and thus channel their power in combat? Create a childhood completely different from what you yourself experienced, and your character will stand out. Make sure this character-defining moment is vivid. Make your character live in a world unlike our own, and your reader will thank you for stealing away their mind for hundreds of pages of excitement. Writing tip number 4. Think beyond murder when creating a Viking. Do you know how the Norse first learned of the riches in British monasteries? They learned this through trade. Many know that Vikings were excellent navigators of the seas. What fewer know is that they also were traders. Through the Viking conquests, lots of cities actually flourished across the British Isles. And it was the Vikings that founded most of these cities. They established cities to trade away both their plunder, but also the various items they had learned to make back in the Norse homeland. So consider this. When making your Viking character, what other skills than murder do they know? Are they an excellent blacksmith? A bowyer who crafts arrows? Perhaps they are a fletcher who makes feathers for arrows? Or do they make combs that are the rage of all the ladies? By giving your character another profession other than simply hitting axes into people's skulls, you make them stand out. You make them unique. You make them more than a simple killing machine. You make them human. To sum up the 4 writing tips, give your character values that put them apart from the rest of society. Give them an abnormal appearance so they are unique. Give them a colorful childhood. And lastly, give them skills beyond being a killer. That's all, folks. Writing Cat thanks you for watching. Be sure to subscribe and follow me on Twitter.